Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss another aspect of Rishi Sunak's loose mouth earlier this week when he made a statement which was surely intended to act as an excuse for keeping wages low, but thanks to the magic of Tory contradictions, it's actually a statement supporting strike action, albeit accidentally. It's also a statement that windfall profits should have a 100% tax rate applied to them. Not sure he meant that either. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So I discussed Sunak's more embarrassing and offensive comments from his public appearance earlier this week already. But now let's move on to a classic of Tory contradictions, because Conservatives do this all the time. They make a statement which is intended to argue for a terrible policy. But if you consider the statement in terms of what it actually means, it generally proposes the very opposite of what they want. If we had a mainstream media applying proper scrutiny to political statements and proposals, it would seem impossible for me for the Conservatives to ever win power at any level, let alone keep winning it at the highest level. But I shall talk more about that in the second video today. But anyway, a few days ago, Rishi Sunak said that pay rises should come as rewards for productivity. So he's suggesting that if people want their pay to go up, then they should be more productive. Work harder will pay you more. Okay, he's linking productivity with income. Fine. Now, he is intending, of course, on deflecting criticism of low pay by shifting the focus away from, into whether or not whether hard-working people can afford to live, but whether they're working hard enough to be able to afford to live. But the statement itself, properly considered, works against his policies. Like I've often made the point. So imagine there's lots of people like this all over the country. So a hard-working person, they're doing a job. They've done that job for years. They might have done that job for 10 years, say. And they're working just as hard these days. If anything, they're probably a little bit more productive because they've developed experience. But let's say it's the same job, doing the same things, equally productive at least, working just as hard. And some years ago, it paid enough to manage their mortgage, pay for their basic expenses, go on holiday, foreign holiday, buy a new car every few years. Now that same person, working just as hard, being just as productive, is struggling with the mortgage, having to buy cheaper essentials, has to bin the holiday, or at least can't afford a foreign holiday, just got to go, somewhere in this country cheaper. Their car has to rumble on for longer before being replaced. In other words, their productivity, their contribution has remained constant. But what they're getting out of it has gone down. Their pay has gone down. Because a pay rise is not a pay rise unless it's above the level of inflation. So what workers have actually been given is pay cuts. In fact, let's look at another group of workers. So take nurses, for example. As more nurses leave the profession, those remaining are having to work harder to pick up the slack because the shortage is not being filled. Hospitals aren't saying, sorry, we don't have enough nurses, you can't be ill. No, they're just having to fill up the gaps because nurses, along with some other public sector workers, are actually being more productive. But their pay has been going down. Rishi Sunak's statement linking pay to productivity should mean that nurses are getting real terms pay rises, not cuts, because they are being more productive. So now let's move around to look at this from a slightly different angle. So if workers can only expect pay rises with higher productivity, then that surely also means that workers being given pay cuts should reduce their productivity, doesn't it? I mean, that's the logical conclusion. Well, isn't that essentially what a lot of strike action's about? Like for some unions, there are other issues as well, but all of them are striking against pay cuts as at least part of their action. And what is a strike but the withdrawal of labour and a cut to productivity? So if Sunak believes that pay should be linked to productivity, then if paymasters cut wages, he should be supportive of workers cutting their productivity, shouldn't he? That is the natural conclusion from what he said. But we can look at this from yet another angle. So the idea is if you are not more productive, you don't deserve extra income. That's what he's saying. Okay, let us apply that to certain corporations, shall we? Let's take oil and gas companies first. Last year, as a result of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, their profits went up a lot. So was this linked to extra production? No, their prices just went up and well above the rate of inflation. In fact, it became inflationary because energy costs went up as a result. We started to use the term windfall profits a lot. This is to distinguish unearned profits from the ones they planned to make as part of their business model. So if pay should be linked to productivity, and oil companies made windfall profits which had nothing to do with their productivity, then surely governments, including the UK government, should have not just applied a windfall tax, that Sunak, by the way, has still not applied to them, but that tax should have been 100% because all of it's unearned income. This would have, of course, just be on the windfall profits, not their normal profits. The large corporations would not have lost out. They just would have gained, and they wouldn't have gained an increase in their effective pay, which was not linked to productivity. But of course, Rishi Sunak did not actually mean what he said there. We could look at another example. Water companies. Water companies are making higher profits, but they've become less productive in the last few years, haven't they? Because they're not doing their job. They're not maintaining clean rivers, lakes, coasts. So they're actually becoming less productive, but their pay's going up. But again, Rishi Sunak didn't mean them either. Like, Conservatives never mean what they say. They say a thing which they think backs up their belief that the poor should be squeezed. They mean it's to be used in a specific context. They don't want you to apply it to other contexts. And they keep doing it because too few people are pointing out that the statement extrapolates to wider economic policies, which actually the Conservatives do not back at all. If Sunak really believed in his statement, then he would do the following. First of all, make sure that every worker had the right to their pay being maintained in real terms for doing the same job. Second, to apply a 100% tax to windfall profits, which only occur due to random events which are not linked to greater productivity. But he won't do either of those things. In fact, he's doing the polar opposite because he's full of shit. Earlier this week, he told workers at a tile factory that he does things differently. No, he doesn't. He does them in exactly the same way as every other Tory leader. He just wants us to think he's different. Just like Johnson wanted people to think he was different. And why do they always want people to think that they're different? Because nobody really, when it comes down to it, wants the Prime Minister to behave like a Tory. When they vote Conservative, it's because they've got a particular objection to Labour at the time, and they fall for the promise of the leader not actually behaving like a Tory. But they always do. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.